The Best a Man Can Get is a short film or ad published by Gillette in January 2019. It was produced by Kim Gehring, and it had very mixed reactions, with 36 million views up till today and 1.6 million dislikes on its YouTube page where it launched. Through emotional imagery and explicit examples, Gillette The Best a Man Can Be aims to call out toxic masculinity behavior and inspire us men to be better. This ad came out in 2019 in the middle of Trump's administration in the US. This is when the Me Too movement became prominent, with the telling of many actors and people in Hollywood saying they were abused or something in the past and they should not be allowed to live in these conditions where they just accept these normalized but really toxic attitudes from men. The purpose of this ad then is to call out these toxic masculinity behaviors and reflect on our society, what's going on, and what we need to change to be better as men for the future. They put a heavy imagery on kids and what they will learn and how they will become in the future. So we're going to touch on these topics and how they use rhetoric elements to convey this message. The first rhetorical element used is the pathos, and they begin the ad by portraying a very guilty man looking himself at the mirror and reflecting on what we are, and while in the background you can hear all this news broadcasts from Me Too movement and sexual harassment. So he's kind of reflecting like, why have we been like this? What have we become? And you can really empathize with that, like, this is a shitty society we're living in. I don't want to be like this. So he feels kind of like guilt, and that is conveyed through his emotions and the grim tone and also the cinematic feel of the ad. So also the palette is really like grayish. So yeah. After this, they use another inspirational part. They change the feeling you're supposed to feel to hope or empathy or inspiration by saying we believe in there is good in men still. So then they show like picture of joyous man, like, oh, I'm ready to do some good in the world. And by countering these examples of toxic masculinity with like the correct attitudes, so they show people correcting these attitudes and with inspirational music in the background, like, oh, we should do better. As for logos, how the argument is structured, we begin with a negative aspect, saying there is this problem which is toxic masculinity and we have lived with it, but then there is a change in the middle saying we are not going to stand for this any longer, and in the end saying we have hope for men and they can be better. So they contrast these bad examples with what the correct attitude would be. So that is, for example, stopping the two kids fighting, or stopping the bullies chasing down the little guy, or just like stopping the guy who's like going for the girl just because he's like. So in terms of kairos, that is the timing of the argument being made, we have to consider the contextual aspect of it, and this is 2019, in the middle of the Trump administration, which has been very divisive among the American people because there have been more polarized than ever before, and these topics of masculinities and the bad aspects of it can be enhanced by the Trump administration and the alt-right movements. In terms of ethos, we have two types, the intrinsic and the extrinsic. On the extrinsic, we have the values of the company, and this is where they kind of shaky, because Gillette was always a company where they would do very sexualized or gender rolled ads, like a man shaving on a woman from behind just kissing, and you can see that at the beginning of the ad, and you can see the boys breaking through that. So it's symbolic, saying, okay, we know we've been like not or been contributing to this problem before, but we want to change. So maybe in that sense, it's like we have experience about this, and we're part of you, and they relate in that way to men because we've been also part of the problem, so we can relate and change together. Also, the intrinsic values, how they build up, and a lot of what they use is famous people like Terry Crews, who's speaking against, like, we should hold men should hold themselves accountable to other men of what they're doing, and also all the news also the news broadcast saying like, oh, toxic masculinity and this is not good and so on. They help to build up this feeling that this is actually the right thing to do, and it shouldn't be this way of all times like saying boys will be boys. We should change, and we should bring hope for the future. So to reinstate the main points, Gillette wants us to look back on what we have done as a society and how we've been conducting ourselves, and realize that this is not the right way to proceed on if we want to make a better future for our children, because our children will learn from what we portray as a society and how we act. So we have to act differently, and we have to start acting the way a proper gentleman will do. And that is what Gillette is trying to convey, us men to be gentlemen, not just like men and saying boys will be boys and being mean and like toxic masculinity traits, as they mentioned. Looking back on the ad 2 years after its release made me realize that it actually portrays its message very clearly and concisely, but probably the timing of it was really bad because the political climate was very polarized, so it really felt like an attack on men, and that may have discouraged more men than encouraged them. That was kind of the purpose of the message. But it is a really good, they portray really good values of what a proper man should do and how he should handle themselves. But at the same time, these ethos fails to convey the message, because like Gillette, you've been like the most misogynistic company in the world, and you saying me like I should behave myself. So I think that was why it was really controversial, but it holds a really good message, and the rhetorical aspects they use really strengthen that argument.